Hey everybody, Rebekah here. Melissa and I are so excited to share this bonus episode with you. We sat down to discuss the mega massive 4-part Beverly Hills reunion with two podcasters who are perfectly equipped to handle this kind of conversation. They are Lauren and Cash, and their podcast is called Allegedly Bravo. Cash is a practicing attorney, Lauren is about to become one, and they tackle the seemingly endless legal battles that our favorite housewives face. Please enjoy this conversation we had with them, breaking down all 4 parts of the Beverly Hills reunion, and they took on our lingering remaining questions. You can find them on Instagram at Allegedly Bravo. That is the name of their podcast. We highly recommend you subscribe, follow, listen, and they also have a website, allegedlybravo.com. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy this bonus episode. Don't forget to follow us as well at criminalityshow across social media platforms, including YouTube, where you can also watch this here interview. Enjoy. Welcome to this special conversation we're having on criminality with the hosts extraordinaire, plural, of Allegedly Bravo. We're talking to Cash and Lauren. Good morning, you two.
Good morning.
And Melissa, hi.
Hi, how are you?
You're here too.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're so excited. This idea transpired because we're all sort of podcast Instagram friends, and the Beverly Hills reunion 4-parter just finished. I feel like we're all in some maybe version of withdrawal. So I thought it might be nice to like round it out with a little debrief. And you guys both bring legal expertise. So this is ideal because we've seen 4+ hours of this conversation, and yet here we are still with questions. So this is really exciting. Cash and Lauren, could you just maybe tell us about your podcast and also how you two came together?
Sure. So, hey, everybody, my name is Cash. I am an attorney here in California. I've been licensed for almost 4 years now. Lauren and I actually met in law school. It was a day at the deli. Is that what it was? When we met
the deli
over meatballs. And we had a bodega that was attached to our law school, and I was ordering food, and we just started chatting, and then we had a couple classes together and became best friends ever since. Took the bar together. Lauren's actually waiting for her bar results. She gets them next Friday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's exciting and scary.
Very scary. Yep. And so we obviously bonded over our love for the legal field, but also our love for Bravo. And we are diehard Bravo-holics. Like I am a OG of the OC. Like I remember watching that back in the day. And so we were chatting over, we would have these like long in-depth conversations about housewives. And then we're like, why? I mean, it's somewhat delusional thought. Like, why don't we record this and put it on the internet and see if people listen? And here we are.
We did. We listened. That's so fun. I love your meeting story. Melissa and I met at CrimeCon, which is also cool, but maybe not as cool.
No, that's still cool.
That's
there
way
were no
cooler.
Meatballs. There
were no meatballs.
So I feel like we're missing out.
Yeah.
We need to add a food element to our story.
Definitely. We talk about food a lot on the show somehow.
How long have you guys known each other?
Just a couple years, right?
Feels like a lot longer because 2020 was like the second year of us knowing each other. So I feel like we met in 2019 and we bonded over true crime. Melissa has a really great podcast called Moms and Murder. She was one of the OG podcasters in true crime since 2017. She co-hosts that with her friend Melissa. And I have my podcast.
I'm the Melissa in that situation.
See, it's 10 a.m. in New York, and I'm not as awake as these two from the West Coast. Yes, with her co-host Mandy. And I had them on my show, which started in 2019 called Dialogue, and we just remained in touch. And then Melissa had the idea for Criminality to kind of take a lighter, well, I should let you tell it, Melissa. What was your thinking around criminality?
I appreciate that. No, I just wanted to do something lighter. We talk about murder all the dang time, and it gets to be a little much some days. And I love Bravo. Same idea. I was an OG OC. I remember seeing Slade Smiley with the, cool, whatever it was called on his face. and Joe, and that was on The Soup. And I remember hearing Joel McHale talk about it, and I was like, what is this show? And that's how I started watching. And then one turns into another. And I knew Rebekah really liked Bravo and like had Sonia Morgan sightings. So like, who else would you have on with you? It's perfect. And the more we get into it, the more crimes we find out are reality adjacent. Like our list, I kept getting a little nervous when we started. I'm like, we're gonna run out of things. And now I'm like, we need a daily podcast. We cannot keep up with all of this content. No, they're just gonna keep breaking laws, and I love them for it.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like that too? Were you worried there wouldn't like, well, we have enough to fill all this like hours of content. And yet I'm sure, especially with the year we've had, you guys are like just breaking down trials and cases like all the time.
Yeah. Like at first I thought, oh no, we might run out of topics. Did we just get, kind of blessed that we have two major things happening at once?
Right.
But it's like Melissa said, the more you kind of like stay in the podcast, there's people breaking the law every single day, and like a huge history of them breaking the law. That's like, it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to learn, and so that people don't make these mistakes.
Yeah. And if they do, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think our housewives are going to continue to make these mistakes, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I hope we all learn like for our own selves. I was saying to Melissa in the last episode, like, it wasn't about the housewives, but it was like, this is a good lesson in reading the contracts before you sign them. Like those are some really like real life applications that we can all take to heart. Okay, well, let's get into this 4-part reunion that we all just finished. Maybe just like, do we all want to go around and like, do you feel satisfied? Did you think 4 parts was enough, too much? Like, what is everybody's feeling? Why don't we start with Cash and go around this grid?
This might be surprising, but I'm so glad it's over.
Oh yeah.
After watching the 4th episode, my anger towards Erika was at an all-time high. I find her to be unbearable at times. She's performative. She's an actress. She's been hanging out with Lisa Rinna too much. I need her off my screen, but I also want her on my screen because it gives us content. But I was very frustrated, and I was just over it. And I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but it was drawn out, and we were giving her too much time to talk, and her story just kept changing, and it just, I don't know. I watched it with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend was even like gasping and just yelling, liar, liar to TV.
He gets the MVP award, man. My husband can't tolerate like 5 minutes. Lauren, what did you think?
I felt really I was left a little unsatisfied, but I think I did have my most favorite part of really the whole season was the evolution of Erika Jayne's accent. It's like where did it come from? Where did it go? Where is it going to come from next? Like,
where is it going next?
Yeah. And there was one accent that she did that I was obsessed with, where she was really acting like a granny. And I was like, it's really hard to take her seriously too, when she's like putting on these accents, and all of a sudden she's wearing froofy pink dresses and a cross necklace. And I was just like, get the cross off your neck. I'm sorry, but it's like weird.
Borderline offensive. Yeah, it's almost like she's going into different characters. It's so weird, Melissa.
It's manic.
Manic. A little bit, right? What do you think?
So remember, we used to have 2-part reunions, and then all of a sudden we all decided 3 parts would be okay, and no one asked our permission for 4. This should have been 3 at most. Giving us the 4th one, you knew we were going to have a total filler one, which was really the 3rd one. I thought I enjoyed hearing a little about Kathy and Kyle, but I don't need to see them crying. We have bigger things, bigger fish to fry. This is just not working for me. But it was sweet, but no, this is too much for us to take in. To really, like you were saying, Cash, she just talked. Erika just talked and talked and talked and talked. And she was able to, because they edited all this together and, gave her this whole huge platform. And while she said she did answer all the questions, did she really? She had answers, but I don't think she answered them. She acknowledged they were being asked, but she would just go into tirade. She seemed like somebody from like the 1920s with a long cigarette, just taking a
Yes.
drag and stuff when she would really go into one of her characters or her accents, like you
Yes.
were saying. It was wild.
That is so true. Like, it just seemed like you weren't whatever. And she's like, how is that supposed to be? Like she knew the camera was going to come in tight and like had prepared. It was so weird. I agree. I think 3 and 4 could have been combined into a strong third finish. Loved the Kyle and Kathy. I know that's not what we're going to talk about, but since you brought it up, I actually
Love.
really enjoyed the genuine emotion from Kathy. Kind of like got me, and I was like, I enjoy like unexpected real emotion on these shows, which I know is unpopular. So I kind of loved that, but I'm wondering if it's okay if I could just ask my big one question, because it's like an overall one, and then we'll get into more like a breakdown. But it's kind of dovetailing with what Melissa brought up. And so our question, and Melissa and I talked a bit about this yesterday for Lauren and Cash, for you both, is do you think her overall, and this like would be applied throughout the 4 episodes of the reunion, I want to say this in a way that I hope makes sense. Do you think what made her whole narrative so convoluted and manic, as you said, Cash, and confusing to us as the viewer, even though she was constantly answering questions we constantly felt like we didn't understand, do you think it's because she played the whole season? She had to play it both ways, like if Tom did it, in case he did, and in case he didn't. And therefore she didn't take a clear line of like a definitive, I believe him, he didn't, or he's the worst, he didn't do this. Do you think that's part of the complication? And does that question make sense?
Yes.
Don't answer the second part.
I think the reason why it's so complicated and so convoluted is because she's not telling the truth. And I do agree with what you said, that she may be trying to protect herself and protect Tom at the same time. And that's where there's this blurred line because I think, I don't know if Erika's ever been honest with us, ever, even from the moment she stepped on our screen. I don't think we know who the true Erika Jayne is, because I do believe that her relationship with Tom was unhealthy, probably at times. There was that huge age difference. I mean, we've seen Tom on screen and he is very controlling, and he has that traditional, I don't know what the best word is to describe, like a old school traditional marriage.
Yeah.
He wants his wife at the house. He doesn't want his wife working. And so but now I think she's going into, she's just trying to save face, and she doesn't want to be attached to Tom, but she's also trying at the same time to look like she was a devoted wife to him. But I think it's all the water is very muddy, and I just don't know if she can come out alive, because the stories are just like the sun and the snow, like her son going to pick up Tom and the snow. It's just insane.
Well, was it one of the later episodes that she was just like, I can't, I guess because of her son and the difficulty
the
with
fourth one, she
the
was
fourth
like,
one.
can't talk about it. Can't talk
Yeah.
about
No,
it.
she doesn't want to talk about it because it's a lie.
Yeah.
Because she can't remember.
Yeah.
There's
I
no
think that's
winning.
so much
There's
of it.
there's no way to win that and to close the gap on that. It's too big. So I think she's like, oh, I can't speak on that. Like, of all the things not to speak on, that's weird.
But I think Lauren's right, though, is she shuts down certain questions because she can't come up with an answer and she doesn't remember what she said.
Yeah.
And it's just a way to protect herself.
And I think that's why, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think that's also why I think it's giving her too much credit to say she's playing both sides. I think like every time she was asked a question, her first response was never an answer. It was, well, how do you think I should feel? Well, what do you think I should have done? And it's like, so you want everybody else to fill in the narrative for you, because why? Because you can't remember, because you're making it up as you go, you know?
You have her head rolled down amazing. That was absolutely incredible. It's like you were channeling her.
Thank you.
Well, one thing I noticed in 3 and 4, the ones that I was really looking at, were whenever Andy would ask her something that would be a yes or no question, she would never say yes or no. She would have a whole sentence where, what was it? I can't remember the specific one right now, but he would say, so what you're saying is no. And she still wouldn't say no. She would say this other carefully worded thing where you're like, hold on. It would be very easy to say no in this situation. I think it was, did you know about this? And she said, did you know about the Girardi Keese, financial problems? I don't work there. Okay, but is that a no?
Well, you did have a credit card. So
right, but it would just be like he set her up. I thought his questions to her were kind in comparison, but his follow-up I thought was really crappy because he only knew those questions, and then he was just kind of like, all right, I'll step back and hope that the girls go after her.
And they didn't.
They were scared. And I don't blame them. She yelled at everyone.
Right. And that was a big conversation too, was like, had this been on another franchise, like, I mean, she got a cakewalk considering like what she could have been up against.
If Monique brought her binder, can you even imagine?
Can you imagine her face to face with Candace?
I would like to see her Twitter with Candace, really.
Yes.
Lauren said that if she was in Potomac, she would not have survived.
No.
She would have quit.
I will say the one thing Erika said that I agree with was that everyone is so precious in Beverly Hills. And I think that works for the whole cast. Like there is this like kind of kitty glove sort of like, ooh, we don't want to look to this or that. And there's this like self-awareness and fear that kind of diminishes like what could and maybe should. I think Sutton tried and look what happened to her, so I think the rest of them were just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, at least not directly.
Yeah, I think it's optics. Like they don't want to have those conversations because they're so aware of their social media presence, who they are on TV, like their reality star presence, and they have to maintain this image. And I don't think they want to muddy the waters with Erika and ask those tough questions. And I think that Erika's a bully. I really do. I think she's really, really, really mean to people, and she lashes out at people, and that's a defense mechanism, and to shut people down so they don't ask her questions. And I applaud Sutton for asking those questions. I wish that because the amended complaint that was filed by Girardi Keese's trustees about the bankruptcy was, I think it happened before the reunion. And we were hoping that Sutton was going to read through that complaint and come to the reunion with questions, because they detailed the whole $25 million spending.
Oh, can you say more about that? So that transpired like between the airing of the season and the reunion?
It did. And so I was called Lauren Erika. Lauren and I did a really in-depth.
She's doing a great job as her, though.
Thank you.
Thank you. You just have to change your personality and your inflection
at least 100 times.
Yeah, at least 100 times. And so the amended complaint breaks down this whole EJ Global, this business that she was running, how they alleged that it was like this personal interest account and it was the shell company. It wasn't a real business, and what it was being used for was to funnel money from Girardi Keese into EJ Global so that Erika had money to spend. And so it was like this fraudulent tax scheme. And so she spent, I think, what was it, $14 million, Lauren, on her American Express, and then
over 12 years.
Over 12, yeah. That's $2 million, you guys.
It was an amazing reality check, right? When she was like, same as any woman here. And I was like, well, probably except for Kathy Hilton, but dang, like, can you imagine like your budget being like a couple million a year over, a decade? That's like reasonable.
That's super reasonable.
And so it's difficult for us to believe. Of course, this is information that's alleged in the amended complaint. We haven't received or seen her response. It'll be interesting to see if she does get deposed. But my understanding is that these credit cards, this American Express bill, was directly linked to Girardi Keese. So I'm assuming it had Tom's name on it, the business's name, because I'm assuming it was a business credit card. And, she signed certain tax information, credit card slips. So I think it's going to be a hard one for her to escape from.
Oh my gosh, that's really good info. Okay, so piggybacking on the Sutton question for episode 1, the question I wrote down for you both is Andy actually addresses the women of the cast and says, you know, Sutton got a lawyer or talked to a lawyer. Who else talked to a lawyer? And they all admit they talked to a lawyer. Your opinion, is that overkill? Is that being like a little hyper vigilant? Or do you think that was like a really reasonable reaction? I would love to know, as you know, legal people, would you advise that in a situation if, you know, Melissa got accused of something egregious? Should I speak to an attorney?
Yeah, well, I would. I mean, I would do exactly what Sutton did. And I have to say, I'm super lucky that my best friend is an attorney. So I get to call her all the time and be like, you know, and me too. Well, I have to pass my bar, but you know, thank you. Yeah. Fingers crossed. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing. And I think Erika's giving it too much weight. She's like, what? You're scared of me? Like, it's like, no, I think a lot of them just had simple questions and they wanted to understand, like, because I mean, for God's sakes, a lot of them didn't even read the whole article. And so I think a lot of them took that article to an attorney or a friend and said, hey, look, can you break this down for me? And at the end said, should I be worried?
Exactly.
I think that was the extent of the conversations. I mean, Sutton may have gone into more detail, but I think Sutton did that for a reason, because I think at one point she offered Erika money. And I don't know, who knows? She may have lent her money and they're just not talking about it, but I don't think it's that crazy.
I agree. Erika had such an overreaction to that. I was just like, it seems like a really natural thing to do. Also, you know, do you know the in-depth long articles we all read for our podcast episodes? To be so closely connected to Erika and not be able to get through that article is like, I know, very bizarre to me.
Like Kyle could not read that article. She could not read it. If it would save her life. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So interesting. Okay. And then from episode 2, Andy asks, it was a lot about the marriage. So I feel like it's a little bit less related. Like I feel like 3 and 4, where we get into a little bit more of like the meat of the legal issues. However, this did trigger a question for me. When Andy says, were you faithful to him? She says yes, until until I filed. And my question to you both is, would that matter? So they're in a non-prenup marriage. There's no prenuptial agreement. If she cheated on him or if there were affairs, would that matter in terms of any of these legal proceedings and her responsibility?
No.
Right. Okay.
No. California is a no-fault state.
Okay.
Which means go ahead, Lauren.
Which means that if you don't have to, if you cheat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, in some states, if you cheat, you don't get anything out of the divorce, or it's like automatic grounds for divorce. But in California, no one has to do anything to get divorced. You can just stop liking each other.
Okay. I think now that you're saying that, I've heard that before because of all the reality TV we watch and cover. But does it mean anything in terms of her assuming the burden and the debt? Like if she doesn't walk away with a certain pre-agreed to amount of assets, let's pretend none of this stuff ever happened, would she then be free of assuming any burden of debt?
No. Her cheating, if either one of them cheated, because there's no prenup, especially unless they had some other intermarital agreement, like maybe a postnup, which I haven't heard anything about that. So I don't think that they have that. Unless they had some other serious agreement about the cheating, it should have no bearing on what she can, or I don't think there's anything to get. Like with her assets and stuff, it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. And in California, it's a community property state. And so whatever you acquire during the marriage, debts or assets, you both take on that burden. And so you're married and your husband racks up $100,000 in credit card debt and you're unaware of it. And then you go to get a divorce. Guess what? You're on the hook for 50% of it. And so that's why a lot of people were asking the question, I think it was on the 4th episode, where Andy asked, well, why do you have to pay? And I don't think Erika really answered. And then Dorit's like, well, because they're married. And it's yes, because they're married, but also because Erika was using a company credit card to pay for her lifestyle. So the 2-parter.
Yes, a two-parter indeed. My question here, and maybe we've kind of answered it, but it's why would Erika's money be kept at the law firm? Like when she claimed she didn't get her checks and they were all turned over, like that's not normal, right?
Yeah. No. And in California, you have certain obligations as a licensed attorney and how you handle your money. You have to have a trust account and then a separate account that you pay your payroll out of and business expensive out of. And the trust account is where all of your clients' money goes. And so it doesn't make sense to me.
You
It doesn't make
cannot
sense.
commingle
Yeah,
it.
you can't commingle
You'll get
the
in
funds.
trouble.
And especially because we're not talking about Tom Girardi being a solo practitioner, meaning he owns his own firm. That's it. This is a massive plaintiff's law firm in the state of California, where there were, I want to say 100 attorneys. Like it was a very large firm. And so there are partners, there are managing partners, there are equity partners, like there are a lot of people involved in this. So it's hard for me to understand how nobody saw this.
Right.
Or
and it's go ahead.
Nobody challenged it if they did.
But I mean, we're talking other people's livelihoods that are on the line. This isn't just Tom's livelihood. Like this, I mean, the company and the business, the law firm has completely dissolved. So all of those people have had to go find new jobs. There are equity partners that have lost all of their money in this firm.
Oh,
and so that's why it's so hard for me to understand that, but maybe it was so big that it was easy for him to funnel this money and give her a credit card or, open multiple credit cards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
No,
I
go.
think part of it was also that, I can't remember who said it, but Tom was the sole accountant for that whole entire firm. From what I understood, like he managed all the trust accounts, all the bills and everything. And that is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that is, if I found out that my attorney didn't have an accountant, I would immediately get a new attorney. It's just way too much money on the line. And like Cash said, livelihoods, not just for people's jobs, but he literally stole money from people who needed skin grafts and now they can't get it. And Erika's just sitting there like acting as though she was robbed. And it's no, you're not robbed when the clothes you are wearing came from money from someone who experienced something so tragic and terrible and they need it. You don't need it.
I have a question for the both of you, just from like a non-legal perspective.
Perfect.
How would you have responded if you were in Erika's position and you found out that there were victims of his conduct? It wasn't just a victimless, it was technically, it's not a crime, but victimless crime. How would you have reacted?
Melissa,
So we're saying that we find out our husband's done this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, actually. Really, my whole thing would be, I would want to do like charity things to try and raise money for these people. I would do whatever I could because sure, I didn't know what was going on, but my gosh, the guilt I would feel knowing that I had participated, not knowing, what had happened, but I had taken their money and flaunted it in the way that she did. I would want to do anything I could to help, even though legally all she has to do, or what she says she has to do, is turn over her bank stuff. I would want to show them, I would just want to do something for me to show that I cared, that I wanted to. I would be living in a tiny apartment. I wouldn't, any extra money I could get, I would want to give to a foundation in their name, something. I don't know. It just the idea, the condescending, like, well, should the secretaries not have their money anymore? Should this person not have that?
That was weird.
Yeah, that was where I was like, come on though, but you were married to him and you had this business, you had a credit card through there. Yours is a different situation. You're saying you didn't work there, right? So either you worked there or you didn't work there. So saying secretaries and stuff like that, that's different. You're the wife of this guy. I would just do whatever I could to try to make it right, even though I'd never be able to do enough, but her attitude it makes me all kinds of angry.
Yeah, same. I
Rebekah.
mean, totally. No, you said it perfectly. I would do the same thing. And I would also honestly like to think I would have some kind of reckoning of self, some crisis of conscience, and say, in discovering this information, I would come out really publicly with a statement like, this has forced me to examine, my life and my lifestyle and what the message I've put out. And I am, horrified and ashamed, even though I'm not responsible in any way. I'm going to be quiet for a little bit and get my hands dirty and figure out how to help in the best way. And one of the last things she said in episode 4 was something to that effect of the best way I can help those people is by cooperating and, going through this legal process. I mean, lack of compassion still, but that could have been the very first thing she said, please understand, me participating and answering is helping all the victims in this story. And also I would make a very big point to say, I don't believe I am a victim, even though, I would just be really clear, and if I am one, it's on a different level, it's a different story and scenario than the people whose lives were really impacted by this. So yeah, just a real different approach, I think. And I might hide from social media. I might just really become very under the radar if I could.
So as attorneys though, what is our what we're doing versus what she's doing? What would you advise? What in the middle? I'm sure there's a middle there.
Oh gosh.
Well, I would first, if she were my client, and it was even just in the disillusion, this is already a high profile marriage and a high profile divorce, just base level with the first claim. And then we find out all about the stealing and all that. And I would tell my client, listen, everything that you are doing is being scrutinized, and the other side, Tom's attorneys, are looking at everything. I worked in family law for a couple of years, and I cannot tell you how many times I have so many burner Instagrams and Facebooks and all that for screenshotting and recording things that people have done just on Instagram and Facebook. This woman's on TV. This woman has millions of followers and she's posting pictures of her butt. And if I were the attorney on Tom's side, just even in the divorce, I would be like, she doesn't need any money from me. She doesn't need any spousal support. She's clearly making money. I would just have told my client, get off social media. It's got to be a low profile. I wouldn't recommend doing the show, but I guess you're going to do what you're going to do because you're crazy and
I need the money, I guess.
Yeah. You need to just chill, be careful.
This is gonna, sorry.
Oh, I was just going
Go
to
ahead.
echo that a little bit. I would, in everything in my being, advise my client to not do the television show, to not talk about this with anybody, to not send any text messages. Don't put anything in writing that can be used against you in court, because like Lauren said, not only is the world watching with a microscope and judging you, but other attorneys are. She hasn't been charged with anything criminally, but I would be fearful, with alleged embezzlement taking place, that, criminal charges are in the near future. And so I would strongly advise my client not to step foot on television and not make a statement, and to, take a step back from social media. And if they want to be present on social media, make sure that it is not tone deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Applebee's is not telling you to, do some of these things she's doing.
Did you
if
say
they're
Applebee's?
Applebee's. They're not going to do that, right? These people aren't saying, we need you to pose this way. We need you to have this as your caption, hashtag
Right.
ad, hashtag, appetizers or whatever. But this is a whole different, it's no, you want to put this stuff. You want to be controversial. You want
It's her
to
brand.
But your brand is not going to do so well. That's where it blows my mind. We're
Mhm.
just having the knowledge of what other people have gone through, these real victims.
Mhm.
And okay, she's not a victim, whatever she says, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right seeing that at all. It just makes you mad.
Well, she's
Mhm.
attempting to play the long game in that she's and she said this, and I think we should move to episodes 3 and 4, which are yours soon. But she was he's done. He's 80. He's in a home. I'm 50. This can't like take me down forever. And so she's doing these ads while she can, while she's got the body and like what little cash she has. Like she is trying to like preserve her relevance in media, and it's disgusting. It's appalling.
I might have to disagree. Like, I do respect her. I actually had a moment of respect for her when she said that. Like, look, I have to survive. Like, I need to make money.
That's interesting.
And it's like, I get that. I understand that you make money, but again, don't be tone deaf in the way that you want to make money. Like, work with brands then that optically look better for you
Yes.
on social media. Like, we don't need to see your legs that are 8 feet long using a camera lens, and you're in tiny lingerie and you have a hashtag that's like Team Erika, you know, or
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like, she's doubling down on her
Yes.
attitude and her disregard for the victim's feelings. I think if she didn't play that card and she was simply promoting like FabFitFun boxes on Instagram, no one would care. Like, people would
Yes.
have respect. Like, okay, we understand you have to make money. Get it. But she needs a crisis PR team.
I mean, absolutely. And I appreciate the distinction. I completely agree with you, Cash. It isn't that I begrudge her having to provide for herself. It's that I interpret it almost as like, and I want to do it on television and for, you know, and as an influencer above any other like respectable employment. And that kind of just struck me the wrong way. And also, before we go into episodes 3 and 4, I know this is going to age myself, but when Kathy Lee Gifford and her husband Frank, you guys might not even know who that is because
I do.
Oh, we do.
Totally
younger than me.
do.
Okay. They had some scandal like a long time ago with their clothing brand where they found out like children were basically making the clothes. And
What?
like their factory was in another country and they sold clothes at Walmart or Kmart or whatever.
Yeah.
And they went down there on the plane. Do you remember this? And their response was to like throw American dollars at like the people of this little village. So that's another response that also looks really insane and tacky and wrong, but you understand the spirit behind it. Like what Melissa described as her reaction is sort of the like verbal like equivalent of throwing dollars at people. Like they were just so mortified that they wanted to physically go fly there and hand them money and be like, we're so sorry and we're fixing it. And that it did like kind of backfire on them. But it is that idea of like, how can I show, you know, how much I want to help and stop the damage from moving forward. So that just popped in my mind. I'll never forget those images. They're like throwing 20s.
I think people, sadly, I think people would have more respect for Erika if she was handing out $20 bills to victims.
I agree that I would much prefer to have to see that.
No, you're not.
Okay, Melissa, let's get into episodes 3 and 4 because I feel like there was a lot of good stuff in those to sink our teeth into.
Okay, so we kind of already talked about my first question on 3, which was the social media. Like, what would you advise, really what they're saying? So I just had this quote that I picked out, and this was one of those times where I don't know, I just want to see your thoughts on this. So whenever she says this whole tirade, she says, "We're a long way from finding out what really happened here. I loved my husband. I thought he was great. Now he's allegedly defrauding widows, orphans, and burn victims. How the F do you think I feel?" And then, you know, that's whenever she does that thing. And he goes, "Well, how do you feel?" And she says, "Horrible." And saying, you know, "Hey," she's like, "I've said that before." And he said, "Actually, you haven't." You know, that's been the whole disconnect, right? The whole thing, like if she was the victim truly a victim in this and saying, "Oh my gosh, how did this happen? I had no idea. This is terrible. You know, what can we do?" And you see her like Jen Shah meeting with her attorney. I want to hire Kim Kardashian, but you see her meeting with them saying, "What can we do? Like how can I help?" I think that would give a lot of, you know, credence. Would attorneys, how about this is my question. Would attorneys ever want to be on TV for this sort of thing with her to say, "Hey, this is," you know, Cash is like, not a good attorney.
No.
I think not a lot of attorneys, but you know, you always see like, especially in like the Real Housewives of Orange County, they love to have their divorce attorneys on there or go sit in a meeting with them. And so I think there's definitely like a bit of that would happen if this was like just a low level basic. I mean, I hate to even call divorce a low level basic thing, but you know, like compared to all this fraud and all this stealing, you know, I wouldn't want a camera in my office with something this intense. Like, it's not something you can just kind of chat about, spousal
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. It's not like Gina from the OC getting her DUI and meeting with her attorney
Right.
about her probation. This is a complex bankruptcy. It's a complex divorce. Like I said, there's a possibility maybe that criminal charges may arise later on in the future. We don't know, but I would never sit down. I mean, that's just personally, I would never sit down with a client with a camera in front of me because, one, it doesn't look great, and two, you waive your attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
So anything you're saying on camera is now public knowledge and it's not protected by the privilege. And so if you're going to have a conversation, it has to be very limited, I guess, on camera, because you don't want to say anything that can be then used against you in court.
I'm learning so much.
Yeah, you waive
guys
your
are awesome. This is amazing.
Yeah, you hold that. You as like, so say Melissa was my client, you hold the privilege. And so if you said, hey, I want to have a camera come in and record our conversation, now you're waiving that privilege because there's a third party that's present.
Does that mean anything else that you say with this case that you and I would be working on? Does that mean there's no longer attorney-client privilege, or just this one thing that I said on TV?
Generally, just the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, the attorney-client privilege relationship continues. But whenever you have somebody else present, it's you're waiving that privilege because now this other person's privy to the conversation.
Got it.
So what about her whole appearance across seasons? Because allegedly, we have to talk about how great your show title is. Allegedly, the feds are like looking for the raw footage of this whole season to see everything Erika did and bought. And is that true? And where does that fall under?
I don't think it's the feds.
Oh,
I don't know though, because I know that there's rumors out there that somebody had subpoenaed the footage.
thank you for fact checking me.
Because, well, we talk about this all the time on our podcast. There is a difference between what Jen Shah is going through and what Erika Jayne is going through. Like,
Right.
Jen Shah is being prosecuted criminally and will go to prison. Like,
Yes.
it's very, when you have federal prosecutors involved in your case, like, it is very unlikely that you are going to get off.
Yes.
Very, very unlikely.
Yes.
And so in this case, we're dealing with a bankruptcy, civil proceedings, divorce.
No
And so I
feds.
think it's the feds.
No feds.
I think it's the trustees that have requested the documents. Lauren, do you know?
Yes, I believe it is the trustees, and from what I understand, they subpoenaed all of the footage, just like you had said. And what I think that they're doing with that is, well, she said little things about Tom called her and all this stuff. I don't know if it's necessarily all of that, or if they're having someone in their office go through and watching all the footage and being like, okay, well, that's a $100,000 ring, and that bag is $98,000, and counting all the money that they can recoup, especially because she was selling at the beginning of this. She opened like that French Poshmark shop and started selling all of those clothes. And so it's like, okay, well, you can't just be moving all of this money away because they're trying to get it back. So I would imagine they're going through and seeing what she's wearing and what's in the background. Maybe like, she got that Chagall painting for randomly, like, was it even her birthday? It was a couple years ago.
Do you think it's a
Oh,
coincidence that a large item was a gift, Lauren?
Exactly. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about, actually, is when you're in a marriage in California and you're receiving or giving gifts, like Cash said, it's community property state. So everything's assumed to be shared between the community of spouses. But if you're getting a gift from your spouse, that's your separate property. And so that stays yours, and they can't take it back. It's yours. It doesn't belong to the community anymore. So one of the things that people are kind of thinking is that one way to move a lot of money is Tom gifting in these generous gifts in their marriage, $1 million painting, a giant $100,000 $500,000 ring. And so he's transferring this money in a way that nobody can take it back from her.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So we're saying that Rick Hilton owns those sweaters. Kathy can never come and take those gifts.
Kathy cannot. Well, if it's bought with community property, she can. But if she gifted those,
she gifted them.
Those are his.
Okay. I was just looking out for my boy Rick.
Yeah.
I only have a couple other quick, well, I don't know how quick these questions will be. So we heard Sutton talk in the 4th episode about somebody leaving over the allegedly shady business dealings, right? And there's like this article that's about, was it a son-in-law of Tom's? You guys know about that? It was somebody.
Yeah, I heard about that. It was I believe his daughter's husband.
Okay.
And I cannot recall his name. I feel like it's Mr. Lara or something.
I think so.
Lara. And just from what I heard, he did leave the firm. But something I find weird is in some of the documents that we've been reviewing, there's a lot of fee sharing agreements, and I've seen him listed in it, and receiving his share of like the fee splitting is his wife, the daughter of Tom. So it's interesting to me that you have an improper fee splitting agreement, first of all, between non-attorneys and clients. And then there's this daughter involved, and both of these wives are receiving money outside of, appropriate ways. And I wonder if he quit because he knew what was coming for him and it's better to get out.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder.
Of course, this is all speculation.
Yeah.
Totally.
But there was the thing Lauren is talking about. There was this settlement between was it a father-daughter that won the lottery? The father had won the lottery, and they had gotten into a dispute of separating the funds, whatever. And so they settled the case, and the attorney's fees that were being distributed as a term of that settlement were being distributed to Tom's daughter and Erika Jane into an account. And I mean, you guys, I've only been an attorney for 4 years, but I have never heard of that.
Whoa. Oh,
You're not allowed to do that. So I just took the bar exam, and it was a question on there. You cannot.
You can't.
Attorneys can't share money with non-attorneys for their work. Outside of work, whatever you want to do with your money is your money. But no.
And I think it was. I mean, of course, in the scheme of $25 million, that it was a nominal amount of like $250,000, and that money I think is just sitting in an account and has been frozen by the bankruptcy court.
Okay.
I love that true crime and Bravo enthusiasts might have a shot at like 20% of the bar exam being right answers just from like our
chit chats.
Just from our podcast consumption or whatever. Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
It's so true.
Okay, I only have 2 more. My next question is, legally speaking, would the phrase "I'm coming for you" be considered slang in a court of law?
That's funny.
You should answer this. Yeah.
Okay. So I haven't really talked about, so I used to be a prosecutor, and I was a prosecutor for about almost 2 years. And so I'm coming for you. It's like, is that criminally a threat? Was there an imminent harm being conveyed to Sutton? I don't know. I'm coming for you is a vague term. It could be interpreted multiple ways, but I think as viewers, I think we all knew what she was saying, and she was threatening her like, I'm going to make your life a living hell.
Yes.
Right.
I do not believe Erika's, what did she say? Was it in the 4th part where she was like, oh no, I was just saying, what did she say?
Like, every year, you never know when it's your year that bad things are going to happen to you. So when it's your year, I'm not going to give you the grace I wanted.
Oh, it's such BS. And that's the thing. Like, she has had time to watch the episodes and come up with a narrative to every single contentious point in the episode where she knows she's going to get drilled by Andy. Like, she has come up with a response.
Right.
And it's so fake. Oh, she's been hanging out with Lisa Rinna too much, you guys.
Lisa
too
was
much.
insufferable on all four parts.
I
Is
agree.
insufferable as a human being.
She is. And I feel bad because I got Melissa a Rinna pool float in the shape of lips from her website because
That's
I'm not
cute.
sure why. It is cute, but like then she just got awful. I mean, I know some people thought she's always been awful, but like she got really awful like right after I bought it. And I was like, ugh, I put money
Okay,
in her pockets.
I have a question then for both of you.
Okay.
For everybody. Is it me or are her lips getting bigger?
Yeah.
Okay. Like her lips have gotten so big.
Well,
Yeah.
she's got to sell the lip kits. And I guess I don't know, if you just look at them and only think lips, like me, you just go to the computer when your friend has a birthday, you're like, must buy a lip kit product. Like, I don't know. It's got to be part of the marketing plan.
Her lips are just, they were very present
Very
in that
prominent.
reunion.
Yes,
Yes,
agree.
very present and prominent.
Mhm.
Feel
Definitely.
a lot.
Definitely.
Okay, my last question really is in the 4th episode, she talks about she couldn't tell this whole story, right? They talk about the wreck, the infamous wreck. And she says, well, I couldn't tell you all of that until Tom's counsel said he was incompetent. Once he was incompetent, she said, I could come out with the whole story. Why? How? Who, what, where, when, why, how? Why did that matter at all? That once they said he was incompetent, she could finally say, well, he actually, rolled down the hill, or there was snowing in Pasadena, all those things. Why is that when we heard the whole thing besides just the ankle breaking?
You want to take this one, Lauren?
Sure. I think like if I could just put it simply, I think she's just kind of making a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, she's lying.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's trying to convolute the stories to confuse people, and she's trying to come up with excuses as to the reason why she's trying to validate her lies, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I hear that and I'm like, oh, well, maybe the council did say, don't say anything until, and now he's, declared incompetent. Go ahead, tell your story. It didn't make any sense to me. That's so bizarre.
It doesn't make sense to me because it's been a couple years since the whole accident had happened. So it makes me, my first thought is, oh, you couldn't tell your friends that your husband had a head injury for 3 years until he was deemed incompetent. Are you playing a long game? That was my first thought.
We have to remember that this conservatorship and this competency hearing did not start until February of 2021.
Wow.
This story of the crash happened 3 years ago. And actually, Lauren and I did obtain some records from the Pasadena Police Department about
exclusive
about the accident. It wasn't about the accident, it was about the burglary, but we had put in a request for documents related to the accident, and there's zilch. So we are going to do it. We are going to continue with our investigation. We are going to continue to ask for these documents, because there's no way, if she called the police department, that an audio log does not exist for a call for service.
And interestingly, I found in the 4th episode, she said, oh, well, isn't there a police report? Well, they can't find one. And I found that weird because she was kind of right. We went looking and we went asking.
And it's also like, believe what people tell you, like they can't find one. Well, because there isn't one, perhaps.
Right.
But
it's
like
her not saying no again.
It's implying like the PD like dropped the ball, or they're looking like how did they screw up? Oh my gosh, that is good.
So excited. And just for some background on how police reports work. So you can call 911 for an incident, say there's a fire, or say it's a non-criminal act, right? Or a crime didn't take place. The police are still going to respond. They're still going to be called what's a CAD log, which is an audio log of the call for service. So you calling into 911 to dispatch, all of the coding schemes and everything that's going on, it's going to be a perfect record of that. And so if an officer responds and he may not have had to write a report, or even if he did write a report, it'd be like 1 page. It exists. Like officers document when they respond to houses, and any 911 call will be recorded. A lot of agencies have purging or retention policies, and so the actual physical audio may not exist, but the CAD log likely does exist. And we are going to find it, you guys.
There you
We're gonna
have
find it.
Oh my gosh. Everybody just chiming in here. Make sure you're subscribed and following Allegedly Bravo for their great work on all
Yes.
these cases and the continuing coverage. How likely do you both think it is that criminal charges are coming for Tom Girardi and or Erika?
I think they are. But just because of what we know with the burn victims not receiving their money and the alleged embezzlement that's happened, it would be difficult for me to believe that they're not going to bring criminal charges, whether or not that's at a local state level or if it's a federal level, because I don't know if there's potential wire fraud or what, things were happening over state lines. But I would hope that there would be some type of justice brought for these victims, because although it's not, a crime of violence, there are victims here. It's a white collar crime and people need to be held accountable. I mean, he's so old, and the incompetency, the curing, even if they did bring criminal charges, it's not going to go anywhere, because they call it like 1368, where somebody's not mentally present and not mentally capable of being a part of the criminal proceedings. So I hope, but I don't know.
You guys are magical. This is just
this
so
has been
much.
Oh, really?
so
I could keep
obsessed.
going.
I know.
Like, I love talking about this. It's so fun.
It's so fun.
well, we
And
should
you explained it in a way we can actually understand.
Yes.
I'm only speaking for myself. Rebecca's very
Yes.
smart, but I can actually understand what you're saying.
Oh, this
You guys
is
are
so great. And we should do another after some of the Shaw proceedings happen.
Oh,
which
yeah. my
I'm
gosh.
gonna
be
do my best
so
to
fun.
attend, because that's here in the Southern District of New York. I've been to that courtroom to see Allison Mack get sentenced, so I will surely be there.
My heart
Oh
just
my
skipped a
gosh.
beat.
I
Right?
know.
Me too.
I know, this is like my Christmas present to myself.
Oh my gosh.
You
And
need
your
to
husband
be.
can never take it from you.
No.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I am gonna bring my legal pad and I'm gonna be sitting in there like a freak
Do
who
you
has
know
no
if they're
business
gonna?
being there.
Do you know if they're letting people into courts because of COVID? I know they're reducing the amount of people that can be present in open court.
They are, but you just have to line up like a psycho at 5 a.m. like I did for Allison's sentencing.
How? But maybe I'll fly out and join
know.
you. That
Hey,
sounds
girls
great.
trip for a bunch of weirdos like us. Well, we can't thank you enough for joining
Yeah.
us and filling in these gaps. It was a lot of fun, and like Melissa said, we learned so much, and we appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you for having us. It
I
was
loved
amazing.
this.
Where can we find you guys on social media? When do you put your episodes out?
We drop our episodes on Mondays, and you can find us on Instagram at Allegedly Bravo. We have a website, www.allegedlybravo.com.
Yay.
Awesome. Yay.
Well, thanks again, girls.
Thank you
Yes,
for
thank
having
you
us. It was
so
wonderful.
much.
We have to have you guys on our podcast to
Yes.
talk about Jen Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yes.
must continue the conversation. Let me hit stop.